Welcome to my channel English Stories. Today is my topic, History of Akbar Shah II. Akbar Shah II was the 16th Mughal emperor and the penultimate ruler of the Mughal Empire. His reign from 1806 to 1837 marked the decline of the Mughal Empire, which had already been weakening for over a century due to internal strife, regional fragmentation, and foreign invasions. By the time Akbar Shah II ascended the throne, the Mughal Empire was a shadow of its former self, with real power being wielded by the British East India Company, which had gradually been expanding its influence and control over India. Early life and ascension to the throne, birth and family. Akbar Shah II was born as Mirza Akbar on November 14, 1806, to Empress Mumtaz Begum and Shah Alam II, who was the father of the last Mughal emperors before the collapse of the Mughal dynasty. His early years were marked by political turbulence and the decline of Mughal authority. Succession. Akbar Shah II ascended to the throne in 1806 after the death of his father, Shah Alam II. However, by the time Akbar Shah became emperor, the Mughal Empire's influence had severely diminished. The empire had lost most of its territories to the Marathas, Nizam of Hyderabad, and the British East India Company, and the Mughal rulers had become largely symbolic figures. British influence. During Akbar Shah II's reign, the British East India Company controlled large parts of India and had already gained immense political and military influence. While the emperor technically remained the ruler of Delhi, the British resident, a British representative, effectively controlled the administration. The British presence in Delhi became more pronounced, and Akbar Shah II was dependent on their support. Reign of Akbar Shah II, 1806 to 1837. 1. Mughal decline and British control. Limited authority. Akbar Shah II's role as emperor was largely ceremonial. His reign coincided with the rise of British imperialism in India. The Mughal emperor had no real power to govern. Instead, the British East India Company controlled the military, the administration, and foreign relations. The British had effectively become the de facto rulers of most of India by the early 19th century. British patronage. Despite his limited political role, Akbar Shah II did receive patronage from the British, and he was able to maintain his position as the symbolic head of the Mughal dynasty. His interactions with the British were largely governed by necessity, as he had little choice but to rely on them for political survival. Treaty of 1806. Under British pressure, Akbar Shah II had to formalize the Treaty of 1806, which reaffirmed the East India Company's control over much of India and formally reduced the Mughal emperor's authority to almost nothing. Maratha challenges. While the Marathas had been largely subdued by the British, regional uprisings and challenges continued, especially from groups that sought to restore the Mughal Empire's influence. The Maratha Confederacy, though weakened, still had influence in some parts of northern India, and Akbar Shah II had little ability to exert control over these forces. 2. Political intrigue and family. Conflicts Internal court struggles. The Mughal court was filled with intrigue and factionalism, with rival factions vying for power. Akbar Shah II's reign saw infighting among his courtiers and royal family members. His own political authority was under constant challenge, especially from his own family members and the British-controlled administration. Ruling power in name only, although Akbar Shah II held the title of emperor, the British resident in Delhi, Sir David Ochterlony, had more power over the city and its affairs than the emperor himself. The East India Company had effectively marginalized the Mughal ruler and reduced the Mughal Empire to a puppet state under British domination. The First War of Indian Independence, 1857, and the decline of the Mughal Empire growing discontent. By the time Akbar Shah II ruled, the Mughal Empire was no longer the dominant power in India. The Indian subcontinent was increasingly under British control, and the Mughal emperor had become a powerless figurehead. This lack of real power contributed to a sense of resentment among both Indian elites and the common people. Akbar Shah II's son, Bahadur Shah II. Akbar Shah II had a son, Bahadur Shah II, who would become the last Mughal emperor. Bahadur Shah II's reign, 1837 to 1857, would mark the end of the Mughal Empire after the Indian Rebellion of 1857, also known as the First War of Indian Independence. During the rebellion, Bahadur Shah II was deposed by the British and exiled to Rangoon, present-day Myanmar, marking the official end of the Mughal Empire. Symbolic role. Akbar Shah II had become a symbol of the decline of Mughal authority. His reign is viewed as the last phase of Mughal rule, and he presided over an empire that was effectively in decline, overshadowed by British imperialism. Important events during Akbar Shah II's reign. 1. Limited power. Akbar Shah II ruled as a puppet emperor under the increasing influence of the British East India Company. Second, British residence. The presence of British resident, a British representative, in Delhi further reduced Mughal sovereignty and influence. Third court. Intrigue. The Mughal court was marked by factionalism and internal struggles as Akbar Shah II's power waned. Fourth, patronage of British. Akbar Shah II had to rely on the British for maintaining his position as emperor, which further eroded his political independence. 5. Cultural flourishing. Despite his limited power, Akbar Shah II's reign saw a continuation of artistic and cultural activities, and he was a patron of literature and the arts. 6. Decline of Mughal authority. The Mughal Empire's authority had been greatly diminished, and Akbar Shah II was seen as a symbol of this decline. End of Akbar Shah II's reign. Death of Akbar Shah II. Akbar Shah II died on September 31st, 1837, and was succeeded by his son Bahadur Shah II. Final collapse of the Mughal Empire. Akbar Shah II's death marked the end of a tragic era for the Mughal Empire. The Mughal dynasty, once one of the most powerful in the world, was reduced to a shadow of its former self. Under Bahadur Shah II, the Mughal Empire would officially collapse during the Indian Rebellion of 1857, and the British East India Company would establish direct control over India. Legacy of Akbar Shah. II last Mughal Emperor, Akbar Shah II is remembered as the last significant Mughal emperor before the British assumed full control over India. His reign is marked by the weakening of Mughal authority and the rise of British power. Symbol of decline. Akbar Shah II's reign symbolized the end of the Mughal dynasty's political power. Although he was a patron of the arts and continued the Mughal tradition of cultural patronage, he was unable to reverse the empire's decline. Historical footnote: his reign is largely seen as a footnote in the history of the Mughal Empire, as it was a period of stagnation and submission to British control. Conclusion: Akbar Shah II's reign was the final stage in the decline of the Mughal Empire. Though he held the title of emperor, his real power was negligible, and the empire was effectively controlled by the British East India Company. His reign symbolizes the erosion of Mughal sovereignty and marks the beginning of the British Empire's dominance in India. Akbar Shah II's legacy is largely overshadowed by the political and military successes of the British and the eventual collapse of the Mughal Empire under his son Bahadur Shah II during the Indian Rebellion of 1857.